Beneath the gentle waves of the ocean, where the water glowed blue with moonlight drifting from above, lived a little mermaid named Mira. She had scales that shimmered like soft pearls, hair that floated around her in ribbons, and eyes that sparkled with curiosity every time she swam past something new. Mira loved exploring quiet corners of the sea, not for treasures or shiny stones, but for stories. For as long as she could remember, she had believed that the ocean whispered to those who listened carefully. The tide hummed lullabies, the shells along the sand carried voices of the past, and even the coral seemed to hold secrets in their colorful ridges. Mira would press her ear against seashells she found along the shore and imagine they were tiny books, full of words written by the waves. One evening, as the water grew calm and the stars shimmered faintly on the surface above, Mira followed a trail of glowing plankton into a quiet cove. The seafloor there was soft with white sand, and rows of seashells stretched as far as she could see. They weren't scattered, as shells usually were, but arranged carefully, spirals in neat lines, scallops stacked like open pages, and conch shells that stood upright as though waiting to be read. Mira's heart fluttered. She had found something wondrous. She drifted closer, brushing the sand with her tail, and picked up a shell shaped like a teardrop. The moment she held it close, a sound filled her ears, not the usual whoosh of the sea, but a soft voice telling a tale. It spoke of dolphins racing with the wind, of coral gardens swaying in the currents, of moonlight reflected in ripples. Mira gasped softly. Each shell was a story. Her eyes widened as she looked around at the endless rows. It was a library, an ocean library, hidden in the quiet cove. Mira hugged the shell to her chest, her tail curling with joy. She whispered into the water, "I've found the seashell library." Mira floated in the middle of the quiet cove, her hands brushing across the first row of shells. Each one seemed to hum faintly, as though waiting for her to choose it. The water here was cooler than in the open sea, and it moved slowly, like the turning of a page. She reached out, picked up a small spiral shell, and pressed it gently to her ear. At once, the softest melody filled her. It was the story of a seahorse drifting through a meadow of sea grass, his tail curling around each stalk like a ribbon. She could almost see him, swaying with the current, watching the sunbeams filter through the waves. Mira smiled and placed the shell back carefully, as though returning a book to its shelf. The seashell library stretched endlessly. She swam slowly along its rows, her tail brushing the sand, her eyes wide with wonder. Some shells were bright and smooth, others rough and patterned. Each one carried a voice. Mira listened to a clamshell that told the story of a turtle's long journey across the sea, and then to a scallop that whispered about a storm that once rattled the waves but passed quickly, leaving the ocean calm again. As she listened, Mira realized she was not alone. From behind a tall coral pillar, a gentle figure emerged. It was an old sea turtle, his shell worn and covered with tiny barnacles. His eyes were kind, slow, and steady. "Welcome, little mermaid," he said, his voice deep, rolling like the tide. "You've found the seashell library." Mira's tail curled with excitement. "It's real," she whispered. "I always thought seashells carried voices, but I never dreamed they could hold stories." The turtle nodded slowly. "Every creature who lives in the sea leaves behind their whispers. The shells keep them safe, so they are never lost. This library holds the dreams, the journeys, and the songs of the ocean." He moved closer, his flippers stirring up soft swirls of sand. "Few come here, because few listen as closely as you." Mira bowed her head shyly. "I love stories," she admitted. "I listen for them everywhere." The turtle smiled, his old eyes twinkling. "Then this place will welcome you." As they spoke, tiny silver fish darted between the rows of shells. They seemed to be caretakers, nudging shells into neat lines, brushing sand from their surfaces with their fins. Mira watched them in awe as they worked silently, keeping the library tidy. One small fish swam up to her, carrying a pink shell in its mouth. It dropped it gently into her hands, then darted back to its work. Mira pressed the pink shell to her ear. A voice drifted out, soft and sweet, a lullaby sung by a whale to her calf as they floated in the deep sea. The notes were low and slow, echoing through Mira's chest until her heart beat with the same rhythm. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the lullaby wash over her. When she placed the shell back, she felt calm, as if the song had tucked her spirit under a blanket. The turtle guided her deeper into the cove. Here, the shells were larger, stacked in gentle towers. He explained, "These are the older stories, the ones carried by the sea long before you and I. Some tell of the first coral that grew, or the first starfish to cling to the rocks. Others remember when the moon first learned to shine on the water." Mira reached out to touch one of the tall conch shells. It thrummed faintly under her fingers, like a heartbeat. She didn't lift it yet, something told her the story inside was long, and she wanted to be ready. Instead, she looked at the turtle, her eyes glowing with wonder. "How many stories are there?" The turtle chuckled softly. "More than anyone could count. The ocean never stops telling them. Every drop of water carries a new one." He lowered his head, his voice gentle. "And now that you've found this place, little mermaid, you are part of its story too." Mira's heart fluttered. She floated higher, gazing across the seashell rows that seemed to stretch forever. The water shimmered faintly, as though the whole cove was glowing with memory. She whispered to herself, "I'll come back every night. I'll listen to them all." The turtle's eyes softened. "The library will always wait for you. But sometimes, it has a way of choosing what story you need most. Tonight, there is one seashell waiting for you, Princess Mira. Will you find it?" Mira turned slowly, her eyes scanning the rows. The rain of tiny bubbles drifted down from the surface, catching the light like falling stars, and one shell glimmered brighter than the rest. It was small and simple, resting at the edge of the sand. She swam toward it, her heart beating faster, and lifted it carefully into her palms. The turtle nodded once. "Yes. That is the one." Mira held the little seashell close, its surface smooth and cool against her palms. It wasn't as ornate as some of the tall, spiraled conchs or as bright as the painted scallops. It looked plain, almost shy, with just a faint shimmer that pulsed like a heartbeat beneath the pearly surface. Yet as she cradled it, she felt warmth hum through her fingers, spreading into her chest, as if the shell itself recognized her touch. The old turtle watched quietly, his eyes glimmering like the deep sea. "Listen carefully, Mira. Some shells whisper, but others sing." Mira raised the shell to her ear, holding her breath. At first, she heard only the hush of water rushing faintly, like the ordinary ocean sound she always loved. But then the sound deepened, widened, until it became a voice soft as currents and rich as the tide. "Come closer," it said, not in words exactly, but in a rhythm her heart understood. And then, something wondrous happened. The water around Mira began to shift. The cove blurred, the shelves of shells melted into light, and her body felt weightless in a new way. It was as if she was no longer only listening, she was stepping inside the story itself. When the light cleared, she found herself in a different sea. The water here sparkled brighter, almost as if every grain of sand glowed from within. The currents moved in slow spirals, guiding her forward like invisible hands. Above her, the surface shimmered with silver moons, though she knew only one moon should exist. Dozens of moons danced in the ripples, each reflection softer than the next. Mira swam cautiously, her hair floating around her like sea ribbons. "Where am I?" she whispered, though the words felt like bubbles that dissolved into the glow. The shell's voice answered, weaving into the current itself. "You are inside me." Every shell carries not just a story to hear, but a memory to feel. And mine is of the seashell library itself, the day it was born. Mira gasped softly, her eyes widening. She was swimming inside the memory of the library's first story. The sand beneath her stirred, and from it rose tiny shells, glowing and spinning into the water like sparks. They floated into neat rows, arranging themselves gently across the seabed. Coral stretched taller, weaving arches that looked like the frames of bookshelves. The water grew calmer, thicker, as if it wanted to protect the space. Mira's chest fluttered with awe. So the library wasn't built, it was dreamed into being? The voice hummed in agreement. Every whisper of the ocean gathers somewhere. This cove was quiet enough, deep enough, safe enough for them to stay. The shells began to hold them, each one tucking away a dream, a journey, a song. And so the library grew, without hands to build it, only hearts to find it. As Mira swam through the shimmering vision, she saw the very first story form in the very first shell. It glowed brighter than all the others and hummed with a melody so pure she could almost see it. A whale appeared, massive and gentle, gliding through the water with her calf. The whale sang, and her voice curved into the shell, sealing itself inside. Mira pressed her hands to her chest, overcome by the beauty of it. The first story was not of kings or battles, but of a lullaby between mother and child. Her eyes misted, the salt of her tears lost in the salt of the sea. She whispered, "That's how it began, with love." The shell's voice grew softer, as though rocking her. Yes. And every story since has been another ripple of that love. Some are joyful, some sorrowful, but all are part of the ocean's heart. The vision shifted again. Mira saw dolphins carving arcs through the waves, their laughter spilling into shells. She saw storms pass overhead, their echoes softening into whispers stored for later. She saw little crabs, their tiny journeys along rocks, remembered in the curves of small spiral shells. Every detail of ocean life, big or small, was treasured, tucked safely into this endless library. Mira floated in silence, letting the scene swirl around her like gentle currents. Her heart felt larger than her body, stretched wide enough to hold all the voices she was hearing. She closed her eyes, listening to the hum. It wasn't just sound, it was comfort, steady and endless, wrapping her like a tide that never pulled away. When she opened her eyes again, the glowing shells around her began to dissolve into streams of light. The moons above rippled and merged into one. Slowly, the vision folded back, carrying her out like a gentle tide. The cove returned, the rows of seashells stretching across the sand, the glowing fish swimming carefully, the old turtle watching with patient eyes. The shell in her hands dimmed, returning to its quiet shimmer. Mira held it close to her chest, her heart still echoing with what she had seen. "It showed me," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It showed me the very first dream. It showed me how the library began." The turtle nodded deeply, his voice calm as the ocean floor. "And now, child, you are part of its memory too. Every listener who hears becomes another page in its endless book." Mira pressed the shell gently back into its place, bowing her head with reverence. Her scales glowed softly in the dim cove light, as if she had carried a little of the story's glow back with her. Mira's fingers lingered on the little shell even after she set it back down in its sandy cradle. Her heart was still humming with the whale's lullaby and the vision of the first stories. The cove around her looked the same, rows upon rows of seashells glimmering in the dim blue light, but Mira herself felt different, as though the rhythm of the library now pulsed quietly in her chest. The old turtle floated beside her, his flippers moving slow and steady. His eyes gleamed with kindness. "The seashell you held was a beginning," he said. "But the library holds more than beginnings. Some shells remember stories of the past. Others dream of what could be. And there are special shells, Mira, ones that don't just whisper or sing. They let you rest inside them, like cradles woven of sound and tide." Mira's tail curled with wonder. "Rest inside them?" she asked softly. The turtle nodded. "They are shells of dreams. They don't tell you what has happened, nor what will happen. They carry the gentle wishes of the sea. When you listen, you don't just hear, you float in the dream itself." Mira turned slowly, her gaze sweeping over the endless rows. She noticed now that some shells pulsed faintly brighter than others, glowing not steadily but in soft rhythms, as if they were breathing. She drifted toward them, her hair flowing behind her in long ribbons, her hands reaching with reverence. She chose one shaped like a crescent moon, its surface pale and cool, shimmering with a soft inner light. Carefully, she pressed it to her ear. At once, her body felt lighter. The cove blurred, but this time she did not tumble into another place. Instead, she felt herself floating on waves so calm they felt like a blanket stretched across the world. The dream wrapped around her. She heard the quiet hush of water rocking her, the faint echo of seabirds above, the faraway hum of whales singing low. She wasn't watching a story anymore, she was inside a lullaby, drifting, as though the ocean itself had become her cradle. When she opened her eyes in the dream, she found herself resting on the back of a giant manta ray. Its wings stretched like silken sails, gliding slowly through a golden sea. The water here shimmered with light, and above her, soft clouds drifted even though she was far below the surface. Mira's hair floated like threads of starlight, and her tail swayed gently with the manta's motion. She felt no need to swim, no need to move. The manta carried her without effort, rocking her like a mother carrying her child. The old turtle's voice echoed faintly, though he was far away. "You see, little one? Some stories are not meant to be told with words. They are meant to be felt, so the heart can remember what it means to rest." Mira smiled softly, her eyelids heavy even in the dream. She curled onto the manta's back, letting her cheek press against its smooth skin. The manta hummed, a sound deep and steady, blending with the ocean's sigh. Every beat of its wings sent her deeper into calm, as though each movement rocked her closer to sleep. The dream lingered for what felt like hours. Mira drifted through golden seas, through fields of swaying kelp that glowed faintly, through caverns where pearls shone like tiny moons. Everywhere she looked, the water glimmered softly, and every sound lulled her further. There was no hurry, no worry, only peace. When at last the dream began to fade, Mira felt herself sinking gently back into the cove. The manta's hum melted into the hush of waves. The golden light dimmed back into the quiet blue glow of the seashell library. She opened her eyes, the crescent shell still pressed to her ear. Slowly, carefully, she set it back on its shelf, her hands trembling slightly from the wonder of it. The turtle was waiting, his wise eyes twinkling. "You see why the seashells must be kept safe? They are not only stories of the past. They are comfort, woven into sound. They are dreams for anyone who needs them." Mira pressed her palms to her chest. "It was like the ocean was holding me," she whispered. The turtle nodded. "Yes. And the ocean holds all who listen. Some just forget how to hear." Mira swam slowly past more shelves now, her eyes full of awe. Everywhere she looked, shells pulsed gently, waiting to be heard. Some glowed like lanterns, some shone like stars, others flickered faintly like candles nearly asleep. She realized that the library was alive, not with words alone but with comfort, with rest, with the heartbeat of the sea itself. Her tail brushed the sand as she drifted deeper between the rows, and her voice was only a whisper. "I could stay here forever." The turtle floated beside her, his movements as slow as the tides. "Perhaps one day you will. But for now, Mira, you must carry the library's peace with you. Take its lullabies, its whispers, its calm. Share them. For stories, like the sea, are meant to flow." Mira looked down at her hands, still tingling with the warmth of the crescent shell. She understood. She wasn't just here to listen. She was here to learn how to carry peace back to the waking world. Mira drifted slowly among the glowing shelves of the seashell library, her fingers brushing lightly against the smooth curves of scallops, spirals, and clams. Each shell seemed to call softly, but she knew in her heart that one special story still waited for her. The old turtle swam quietly at her side, his eyes glimmering with a secret he had kept for many tides. He had shown her the dream shells, the shells of beginnings, and the lullabies carried through the ages. But now, he guided her deeper, beyond rows she had not yet explored. The water grew stiller as they went on, the light dimming into a deep, velvety blue. The fish caretakers did not swim here, and even the smaller shells hushed their glow, bowing almost like lanterns dimming before a brighter flame. Mira's heart beat slow but steady, her tail brushing the sand in long arcs. She felt as if she were entering the heart of something sacred. At the very end of the cove stood a single shell. It was larger than Mira herself, shaped like a great conch with spirals that reached upward like the curves of a tower. Its surface shimmered with every color of the sea, deep blues, foamy whites, coral pinks, and pearl gold. Light flowed across it in ripples, as if the tides themselves moved beneath its surface. It hummed, low and steady, a sound so deep that Mira felt it in her bones before she even touched it. The turtle stopped beside her. He bowed his head, his voice soft and reverent. "This is the Great Conch of dreams. It does not hold the memory of one creature, nor even of one moment. It holds the ocean's dream itself. Every wave, every tide, every song of the deep flows here. Few have been invited to hear it." He looked at Mira with eyes that glowed like the moon through water. "But the library has chosen you, child. If you are ready, place your hands upon it." Mira hesitated for just a breath, her heart fluttering like a small fish darting through kelp. Then, with hands trembling, she reached forward. Her palms pressed against the shell's cool surface. The hum deepened instantly, vibrating through her scales, up her arms, into her chest. Her eyes widened as the conch began to glow, its colors swirling like a storm, then calming into a steady golden pulse. The world around her blurred. The rows of shells dissolved, the turtle's voice faded, and Mira was surrounded by sound, not loud, not overwhelming, but endless, like being cradled in the very breath of the sea. The conch's dream opened around her. She floated in a vast ocean with no horizon. The water stretched forever, glowing softly from within. Above her, stars swam like fish, drifting lazily, their light spilling into the sea. Around her, currents curled like ribbons, weaving patterns that pulsed in time with her heartbeat. She was weightless, part of the tide itself. Then came the voices. Not one, not many, but all. They blended together, a chorus of the ocean's memory. The laughter of dolphins. The sigh of whales. The rustle of seaweed swaying in the current. The patter of rain on waves. The whisper of the tide kissing the shore. Every sound the sea had ever known folded into one voice, the ocean's own lullaby. Mira closed her eyes, tears slipping free, though they dissolved instantly into the water around her. She felt herself held, as if the ocean's arms had wrapped around her, rocking her gently. The conch did not tell a story of beginnings or endings. It told of belonging. That every creature, from the smallest shrimp to the largest whale, from the brightest coral to the drifting plankton, was part of the same dream, woven into the same song. Her body loosened, her tail swaying gently as if moved by the conch's current. Her breathing slowed. She felt drowsiness heavier than any she had ever known, not the exhaustion of a long day, but the sweet surrender of trust. She whispered into the glow, her voice small and hushed, "I am part of it. I am part of the dream." The ocean's voice answered, steady and endless, "Yes, Mira. Always. You are the dream, and the dream is you. Rest, little one. Rest, and let the tide carry you." The glow around her softened. The vast horizon blurred into warm light. Mira felt her body curl slightly, like a pearl settling deeper into its shell. She could no longer tell where her heartbeat ended and the oceans began. They were one rhythm, slow and deep, like waves rolling forever. She sank further into calm, her eyes fluttering closed in the dream. The conch's lullaby folded around her like silken seaweed, swaying her gently. Every sound, the whales, the waves, the shore, grew softer, slower, fainter, until it was only one steady hush, the hush of water embracing everything. And then, slowly, she felt herself being carried back. The vast dream faded, the glow dimmed, and her hands still rested on the Great Conch. The cove returned around her, quiet and reverent. The turtle floated nearby, his head bowed. He looked at her as though she had crossed into a place few had seen and returned carrying its light. Mira's eyes half closed, her body heavy with drowsiness. She whispered, her voice as soft as a ripple, "It was the ocean itself, it sang to me." The turtle nodded, his eyes kind. "And it will sing to you always, child. You carry it now. Wherever you drift, you will never be apart from its dream." Mira pressed her palms to her chest. She could still feel the hum, deep and steady, inside her. It was not fading, not slipping away. It would stay, rocking her, reminding her that she was never alone, never separate from the sea's gentle story. She looked once more at the glowing conch, her heart full. She knew she had found something she would never forget, not just a library, not just a shell, but the very lullaby of the ocean itself. Mira floated in front of the Great Conch for a long while, her hands still tingling with its glow, her heart swaying with the rhythm of its lullaby. The seashell library stretched quietly around her, but now it seemed softer, calmer, as if every shell had hushed itself to let the conch's song linger in the water. The little silver fish caretakers swam slowly between the rows, their movements gentler than before, as though they too had been lulled into drowsy peace. Even the water felt heavier, warmer, holding Mira like a cradle. The old turtle hovered at her side, his eyes glimmering with quiet pride. "You have heard what few are ever allowed to hear," he murmured. "The ocean trusts you with its dream now. You may return whenever you wish, and its voice will always be waiting. But tonight, it is time for you to rest." Mira's eyelids fluttered at his words. Her whole body felt loose, weightless, like sea grass drifting in a current. She nodded slowly, whispering, "Yes. I am ready." The turtle gave her a kind smile. "Then carry the ocean's lullaby with you, little one. It will follow you to your bed, and into your dreams." Mira turned once more to the Great Conch, bowing her head with reverence. Then she drifted slowly back through the shelves of shells. They pulsed softly as she passed, their lights dimming in a rhythm that matched her heartbeat, as though they were wishing her good night. The glow of the crescent shell shimmered faintly, like a farewell wave. The lullaby shell, the turtle's stories, the dream petals, they all folded into one quiet hum around her, carrying her outward through the cove. At the edge of the seashell library, the water grew lighter, touched by the moon above. Mira swam upward, her tail moving lazily now, no hurry in her strokes. She emerged from the cove into the open sea, where plankton drifted like stardust. The surface rippled faintly with silver light, the stars twinkling far above. Everything was hushed, wrapped in the quiet blanket of the night tide. Her coral home waited nearby, nestled between gentle seaweed and soft anemones. She glided inside, brushing past the fronds that swayed like curtains. Her bed was made of smooth shells and strands of woven sea grass, soft and welcoming. Mira curled herself into it, tucking her hair around her shoulders like a second blanket. The water inside her room felt warmer, slower, safe. She set her hand lightly against her chest. The hum of the Great Conch was still there, steady and deep, rocking her heartbeat into perfect rhythm. Every sound around her, the sigh of currents, the whisper of sand shifting, the soft creak of coral, folded into the lullaby. She closed her eyes, her lips curving into the faintest smile. The dream began to carry her at once. She saw the manta again, its wings wide and gentle as it glided through golden seas. She saw the whale's lullaby, wrapping the calf in a blanket of song. She saw the rows of glowing shells, each one cradling a dream. And then she saw herself, Mira the Mermaid, drifting in her coral bed, part of the ocean's story, part of its dream. Her breathing slowed, deep and even, bubbles slipping gently from her lips. Her tail curled softly, her body sinking further into the bed of sea grass. She felt as though the whole ocean had reached out to hold her, rocking her, humming to her, whispering endlessly, "Rest, rest, rest." Above, the moonlight filtered through the waves like strands of silver thread. It wove itself across the coral walls, painting Mira's bed in soft shifting patterns. The seaweed swayed like lullaby hands, the anemones closed their petals as though tucking themselves in, and even the tiny fish curled into hollows to sleep. The entire sea seemed to follow the Great Conch song, the whole kingdom of water falling into rhythm with the little mermaid's breath. And so the night whispered, wrapping Mira deeper and deeper, "You are safe. You are warm. You are loved. You are ready for the sweetest dreams tonight." The ocean hushed, the library dimmed, the currents rocked in slow waves, and Mira slept, carried by the lullaby of the seashells, cradled by the sea itself.